So, my name is Fej. I come from Waze. Some of you heard about it, some of you have not. But just so that we are, I'd say, in sync about what our mission is. Once upon a time, there were dictionaries. I don't know how many of you ever met them because I think you're more in the Wikipedia age. But Waze is what we call Wikipedia of the drivers. And the reason it's Wikipedia of the drivers is because of this guy. His name is Ehud. Ehud got this device about 10 years ago. And he had a navigation software on it. And he used to travel with it to places he would not know how to get to. So Ehud used it once, used it twice, used it several times. As you know, Israel is not very big. So he didn't get lost anymore. And so the software, which, by the way, was quite expensive. It was, I'd say, something like $700, $800. It was actually more or less useless. So he said, I want to make it interesting. I want to add information that's important for me as a driver. And so he decided to add speed cameras. Because he didn't travel all of Israel, he said, I want to get some help in doing so. And so he wrote a small piece of code that was running on that same device, handheld device, and gave it to some PC freak forum. And they actually distributed the software. They drove around Israel. And at the end of the day, after 2 weeks, he had all the speed cameras in Israel because they would just see one, record it with his small piece of code, send it to him over the email. He compiled it and created the right layer of speed cameras. He was happy. Everybody was happy. We had the first kind of crowdsource project in Israel. Unfortunately, the map company that provided the map to this software was not very happy, and so he got a letter from the lawyers of the company saying, we don't want you to do that anymore because we want to sell it for money. They messed up with the wrong guy because he said, this is something that is not acceptable and I want to see what it will take me to make the whole map of Israel using crowdsourcing. And so he sat about a year in his home. I would say this is like the first garage operation in Israel, only it was in a balcony in Tel Aviv, but he sat and wrote the basic Waze software on the client side, on the server side, also the map editor. So how is Waze actually doing what it's doing? So you can see the users are actually driving. Each of them, we collect all the GPS points. At the end of the day, you create a kind of a grid. You can see from that grid that it's actually a map. So you can see the roundabout, you can see 2 or 3 main streets, you can see some side streets, you can see a lot of noise around. And the noise and clearing it out and making it into this grid is part of, obviously, the logic and the sophistication of Waze. But at the end of the day, even after we have that grid, we need the users to add some information. For example, the street names. For example, road types. For example, you can see on the right side there, there's a red road that's not been named yet, so it's marked differently. But at the end of the day, the idea is that people are driving, we record their information, and based on that, we build a basic map. They add in additional information, and you have a dynamic map. It changes every day. We compile the map of the whole world every day. There's a new road, there's a new intersection, there's a road that's been demolished. Everything is updated. And when the users are actually driving, we can collect not only the GPS for map purposes, we can also use it for detecting traffic jams and all kind of irregular events. The users can also report things like hazards, police, accidents, constructions, all kind of activities. And at the end of the day, you have what we call the live map. It's being used by the users. Now, what you see here is the way the map looked in the first days. There was nothing. There was no road. And we have here a very nice example of one of the users. This is from Europe. And the way the map was built, you can see it's only a couple of roads. Then after several weeks, you have some more roads. Then you slowly add some of the points of interest. You add the rivers, etc. And day by day, the map is actually being created. It takes a while. Obviously, it takes enough users to do it. But we actually kind of, I would say, changed the equation related to Wikipedia. If in Wikipedia there's about, 0.1 of the users are contributing and 99.9 are, so to speak, parasites, we have it differently. So 100% of the users contribute because they contribute their GPS points when they are actually using the app. About, I'd say, 10+% contribute because they give the reports of accidents, police, etc. And then you have that small percentage which is actually creating this map. But they're creating this map, and it's something that is amazing to see the way it actually works everywhere around the world. You take the Waze application and you use it, and you can use it everywhere you want. But there is a thing about related to growth. So how do we get all the users, especially those that are interested in building this? Obviously, in the beginning, it was very, very early adapters, people that were really technical, really liked the idea, bought on the vision. Obviously, free GPS before free GPS ever existed was something that was very appealing because the software was very, very expensive and was not very accurate. So the combination of free and maps changing every day, learning your route was something that was appealing. But to get the masses, you have to go to traditional media. And one of the things we identified with this road in Los Angeles, the 405, I don't know how many of you are from the States, but there was, okay, there are. About, I think it was 4 years ago, there was an event called Carmageddon. And Carmageddon was like Armageddon, only it was just a bridge being demolished that would block this highway over the weekend. Obviously, it's no reason to go to the supermarkets and take all the food out. It was not that bad. But it was something that made a lot of noise in all the US, especially in the Los Angeles area. And what we said was, let's see how Waze can help provide information in real time from the users, because the users were using alternative routes. And that was something that was interesting to all the inhabitants of Los Angeles. And so we decided we can go on TV and provide that information. We hooked up with ABC and came up with our Waze for Television program. You can see how it looks.
We do have a new accident report, and I want to take another look at Waze. We actually did have a Waze user post a photo of that accident. Pretty nasty crash there.
Now I want to check in with our Wazers because I am a Wazer myself, and I want to say good morning to Jay Ray. He's actually a member
of the ABC7's exclusive Waze traffic app. This is what it looked like at about 9:30. Basically, we had a 10-mile backup.
We're checking in with our Wazers this morning.
Waze is able to give you that information you would not be able to get otherwise.
The equation was very simple. We give them a Waze that was tailored a bit for television, and we get many millions of dollars in airtime. This is something that we could obviously not afford as a startup, but the idea was that we would replace their kind of like traditional media, which was costing them money, and they would get it for free. They would get it exclusively in the specific city, and we would get airtime in the morning, in the evening, and some additional kind of clips during the day so that there will be more users. The more users there are, the better the traffic information is. We saw it was successful in Los Angeles. We took it all over the US and globally. And that's the way, actually, we went metro by metro and got hundreds of thousands of users in each of them, and more or less for free. We were very happy with that, so we moved also to radio stations. Radio stations, we have what we call the estimated time of arrival tool. They can mark specific spots in the city or in Israel, in the country, on which they want to report. And so they can say, from this intersection to this intersection, it takes 35 minutes because of an accident, etc. And you can circumvent it in another way, which is that purple line. And so this is now the way we're going after radio broadcasts. And so drivers are now would either see us on the traffic news shows at home or hear us on the radio. And this is definitely something that in every metro that we go, in every station that we get additional users. Another example was this one. You know where that? Yeah, Rio. Okay. So we said we're getting very good users. We have very good real-time information. What we're lacking is some of the static information. So there are a lot of road closures and constructions that are missing from the equation. Obviously, you can report them, but we don't know when they're starting, when they're ending, etc. And this is something municipalities have. And so we teamed up with Rio before the World Cup as an experiment. We provided them our real-time information and requested them to give us their information, including, for example, issues of, after soccer matches, they actually make both roads go the same direction. So they block, it's not bidirectional, it's just one way, things like that, to control traffic. They have 7 million inhabitants. They have an amazing center. This is a center by which they control all the traffic in Rio de Janeiro. And we hooked into that to receive information and give them information. It took about 2-3 weeks to set it up. And they're very happy. You can see that they have a lot of cameras, but what they're missing is knowing on which camera to look at. So based on the Waze reports that they overlay on their maps, they can actually decide where they want to put maybe resources, send people. They want to watch and see what happened, and based on that, kind of manage the city. This is something that, again, we piloted in Rio, and now we're taking it to municipalities all around the world, US, Brazil, Indonesia, UK, etc. And this is something that, again, is done for free. We're not paying them, they're not paying us. The business model is not at all related to monetizing that. The idea is to get as much information on the map, make the Waze the best navigation system there is, and obviously provide the value to the users.
What is happening where? This is one of those.
I'll cut it short because I'm running out of time.
It's so valuable.
But you can see the end result is that we have events of closures like marathons, parades, etc. And so what we do, we mark that information and circumvent the drivers around it. We do it in real time, and so they have to dispatch less resources from the municipality and police to actually manage that. Obviously, if everybody uses Waze, no one will go driving there. We're not there yet. But we should be pretty close. That's about it. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.